everybody, Jason here from Murideo. Thank you so much for joining today's webcast. I have Tyler Pruitt here from Portrait Displays. Tyler, how's it going?
Great, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Good to hear from you. I see a lot of familiar names in the attendee box here, so thank you guys so much for checking out the webinar and your continued support. As we go through the presentation today, there is a question box, so if you have any questions, feel free to type those in. I'll do my best to answer those questions or bring them up at least during the presentation, and then we'll leave a little bit of time at the end to answer everyone's final questions. So, Tyler, what do we got going on? What's new?
Yeah, we're talking about Calman 2021 R4 today. So we're really excited about this release. We're getting ready to release the next beta, in the next few days, maybe early next week. And then, that will be the last beta, and then the GM will come right after that. So we're really looking forward to some new features in here and telling you about it today.
Awesome. Sounds good.
So yeah, I'll just get right to it then. Had to put this first is the Murideo 8K generators. So these are kind of like the successors. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what's different about these than the 4K versions before them, and then I could talk a little bit about how it's different in Calman.
Yeah, good call. So what you're seeing on the left there is the newest version of the 7G. This is the 8K version, and on the right side of the screen, you see the 8K version of the 6G. There really aren't too many new things other than the new formats and new resolutions and whatnot. On the 6G, there is one new feature that if you also have a 6A, you can do some latency tests. But other than that, guys, it's just the new resolutions and 40 gigabits per second, and we're chugging along, and we're going to keep updating these things and adding new features as we go. But as of right now, the major differences are just the new formats.
Yep, and I think the 7G can also do like 4K 120, right?
With the latest firmware update, you can do 4K 120, which is really cool. And I do want to mention one other thing. You just jogged my memory. We added something into the 8K version. We're kind of internally calling it calibrator mode, but what's going on there is when you would pick, say, like one of the ISF patterns, if the ISF pattern was natively RGB, when you picked a pattern, it would go back to RGB. So if you picked like component out and then pick that pattern, it would go back to RGB and you'd have to choose component video. So a lot of calibrators out there were like, hey, this takes extra time. I got to do a couple extra steps. So on this last, I think 2 firmware versions ago, we made it to where that whatever you pick for the output, it'll stay like that no matter what test pattern you pick. So that's pretty cool. And if you guys don't have that firmware, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to share it with you.
Cool. Yeah, and these have the same features for Calman. We've added the new resolution presets. So if you want to select 4K 120 or 8K in Calman, you can select that directly in Calman without going to the device itself. Also, they're both licensed the same. So if your software level supports the 6G, it will also support the 8K 6G. If your software supports the 7G, then it will also support the 8K version of the 7G. So we're not like making it only professionals can have the 8K 6G or something like that. I think the 7G is only in the professional versions, but the 6G is in the home version as well, if that's what you're working with Calman. So the next thing we want to talk about is new EDRs for i1 Display Pros. This was a massively requested feature. A lot of our home users have the X-Rite i1 Display Pro, and X-Rite's SDK does not come with really new technology TV meter modes or EDRs. And so we made custom ones just for the i1 Display Pro, and we support now OLED TV, which is WRGB panels. So that would be LG, Sony, Panasonic, other TV manufacturers that are using the WRGB LG display panels. The Quantum Dot one was made off of a Samsung Quantum Dot TV, and then the other is PFS Phosphor, and that really covers, at the premium TV market, that is like 99% of the premium TV market, one of those 3. So that should be really good for everybody, because most TVs that are wide gamut and HDR and premium, they're one of these technologies. So for example, like Sony, they use PFS phosphor on their LCD models, um, uh, and other manufacturers do as well. So this should be a big upgrade for everybody. And this includes all the models of the i1 Display Pro. So that would be the OEM version, the retail version, and then it also includes the Calibrite Pro, Calibrite Pro and Pro Plus, because X-Rite has rebranded under this new umbrella called Calibrite, and it also includes those. So yeah, we're really excited with that, and we've gotten some really good feedback so far.
Tyler, is there a way that is it maybe listed anywhere? I get this question a lot actually, where people are like, "How do I know like what this Samsung is? Whether it's a white LED or in this case maybe a PFS phosphor? Is that documented anywhere, or do you just kind of know?"
It's hard to keep a list like that because there's so many different things. It would be like the world's largest spreadsheet or something. So it's really I would focus on kind of like I would try to find out in like the user or owner threads on AVS and stuff like that, or in the calibration forum you could ask, and I'm sure somebody with a Spectro that has one of those can let you know what it is.
Yeah. And
Um,
it seems like on some places like Rtings and maybe CNET, like a lot of that information they usually find out and list it in there too. It seems like.
Yeah, and some reviewers will show you what the SPD or spectral power distribution measurement with the Spectro is of a TV during the review. So those are kind of, if I was trying to find out, usually I would look on manufacturer's website. Most of the time they don't get really granular about what LED type is. But you know, a lot of the reviewers cover that, and if you can't figure out that from there, then AVS forum's a good resource.
Cool. Good. Thanks.
The next thing we want to talk about is Calman 2020-21 R4 is enabling the 2021 version of Samsung's TVs for AutoCal. We also made a new matching EDR for the C6 that is specific for the 2021 Samsung Quantum Dot QLED TVs. So we're excited about that, and that's supported in Calman for Home for Samsung and all the professional versions. This is a kind of a new one for this year. Is we forged a partnership with Philips and their OLED TVs and their high-end mini LED TVs. Both of those are the Ambilight technology, where they have the cool RGB LEDs on the back. But there's a new workflow for Philips, and there's actually on the TVs there's a Calman picture mode that actually says Calman.
Oh,
So that's
very
kind of
cool.
interesting. Currently, that we do not have a home version for Philips. If that's something you guys are looking for, you know, send feedback in. But currently, that's only supported in the professional versions of Calman for calibrators. So this will be a partnership that's ongoing, you know, for future models, because I know that they just announced the 2022 models as well. This is a new big one. Is we're supporting we have a partnership with LG for their RGB OLED computer monitors. And you know, most people aren't going to be doing desktop computing with this thing, but Hollywood seems to really need a monitor like this. So we think there's going to be, you know, a lot of Calman users that are going to be needing to calibrate these. And currently, right now, we can only do SDR calibration, but we're going to be releasing the next version of Calman, and it will have HDR calibration as well. But what you need to know is there's a new workflow called AutoCal LG Monitor in Calman. It's supported in Calman Studio and Ultimate, and it gets really, really incredible results. We can calibrate all the SDR picture modes currently. So the way it works, it doesn't really have like picture modes called like ISF or cinema. It has presets for like sRGB, 709, Adobe RGB, P3, 2020. We can calibrate any of those modes. And those modes are really just like a name. And so you could do multiple 709 calibrations. You would just pick a different name. So you could pick the 2020 slot, but do a 709 calibration in there if you desire or need multiple 709 calibrations. Maybe you need ones with different white points, or you need a different gamma formula, maybe one 2.2 versus 2.4. So you can kind of do all of that. There's a lot of flexibility there. Yeah, and we're going to be doing a tutorial video very soon on that process. So stay tuned for that on our YouTube page.
Tyler, there was a question that came in when we were talking about the EDRs before. Just a simple question. What is EDR? What's the abbreviation?
It's an X-Rite name. It stands for emissive display reference. And the way it works is the manufacturer characterizes the measurement device for its color matching function, essentially. Its spectral sensitivities of its filters, and then that is saved into the device itself. And then what an EDR is that is a 1 nanometer spectro measurement of red, green, blue, and white on the display. And those things are combined to create a matrix for measurement. So it's kind of the best thing that you can have if you do not have your own high-end spectro to create your own profile.
Cool, good, thank you.
Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be showing today is a huge upgrade for LG projector owners. So we initially added support for this in at the beginning of this year, and it was really basic support. We didn't have a really optimized for the projector. And what we've done is we've kind of completely gone back. We've enabled it for the Aurora color engine, so you get to take advantage of our new color engine. We've also enabled the custom HDR tone curves, and I think this is probably one of the biggest features we've added is the ability to optimize the tone curves depending on how big your screen is, how bright you measure. Because if you have like a 92-inch screen and you have 200 nits peak brightness versus like a 120-inch screen and like 50 nits peak brightness, to convert from the 1,000 nit HDR master or even 4,000 nits, you have to do much more tone mapping to get down to like 50 nits. And this allows users to tweak that until they get the best picture they can. We're going to be putting out a tutorial on how those tone curve values work and how they work differently than on an LG TV. Because they're the same controls, but because we're talking about a vast difference in peak brightness, it'd be like if you had a TV that only did 100 nits or something, and you tried to do HDR on top of it. The tone curves would be a lot different than if you had a 700 nit OLED and you were just tone mapping a little bit. I also did extensive testing to optimize the grayscale auto cal points just for the projector, because before we just had the same ones available as if you had the flat panel LG TVs. So we really went through and made sure that we had the correct grayscale points. We enabled kind of this customization for HDR and enabled the Aurora color engine. And the interesting thing is, because this is it's a DLP with dual lasers and then green for phosphor. What's interesting about it is you can, because the panel can't heat up like an OLED or something, you can do a large cube, like a 17 cube, measure almost 5,000 points in HDR. Nice. So you can get HDR very accurate on this. So
that's awesome.
Kind of a nice feature. You can start it running, take a nap, or run it overnight, in your theater while you're sleeping, and it's measuring. So we've also updated the workflows to have projector specific instructions and information. And like I said before, I'm going to be putting out some tutorial videos on this product, because a lot of people, there's a lot of variables, and it has settings in it that aren't really in the LG TVs. It has like an aperture setting, and it has a, laser dimming setting where it can dim the laser actual output to increase contrast. And you just have to be aware of how that affects the calibration and stuff like that. So we're going to be putting out, watch our YouTube page. We're going to be putting out some good tutorial videos on that.
Very cool.
Okay. Also, a lot of people have asked, why, when you released Calman 2021, earlier in the year, why wasn't the Alpha 7 supported? We had to do additional testing. It's like a new SoC for this model in 2021. So there was extensive kind of changes that had to be made. The lookup tables are different bit depths and sizes and stuff like that. So we are releasing support for Alpha 7 TVs, and that includes the LCD models, the QNED 90, and the A1 and B1 OLED. But currently, we can only do SDR. We're working with LG on some firmware kind of changes to allow us to do a really good HDR calibration. So if you have one of these models or your customers do, you can do an SDR only calibration, and then you would have to do like a manual HDR calibration. And this is also supported in Calman Home for LG and all the professional versions of Calman. Whoops, hit the mic. So that is kind of a very quick overview of what we're doing. What I want to talk a little bit about is, what we're going to be doing in the future and stuff like that. Not so much, a bunch of secrets, but we have been investigating some more accurate ways to do 1D LUTs, especially for, the LG TVs. And so if you're not a part of our beta program, I think it's very, very important that you sign up, because the first beta of Calman 2022 is going to have this more high precision algorithm for 1D LUTs. And we're seeing like not just a little bit more accurate. For example, in SDR, when we would do a 1D LUT for an LG, the lowest point we'd go down to is 2.3%. And usually you would get like a delta ITP of like 1.6 on that point after calibration. And with this new high precision 1D LUT math, we're able to essentially get that down under 0.5. So it's like 300 to 400% more accurate down near black.
Very cool.
It's not just like 10% better. It's a massive accuracy increase. And then for people that have higher end measurement devices, like say the Minolta CA410 or the CA310 or the Klein or the CR100, stuff like that can read really dark, we will also be enabling even lower adjustment points. So not only do we have more precision, we're actually going to go lower. And for those people that have those meters, we should be able to eliminate even needing to do like the shadow detail adjustment. That we will still leave that shadow detail adjustment in there for people that have like the C6 or the i1 Display Pro, because they don't have as good of near black reading. We're talking about like below 0.005 nits. So that will be in there. We're really excited about that. We also have some new Calman Ready partnerships that we will be announcing. So I think it's very important that you guys sign up for the beta program, because you will be the first to have access to these new features and new hardware support.
Tyler, on that note, as far as being able to read those darker levels, you may have said this, I may have missed it, but is that going to be like a specific model number going forward, or will you be able to go all the way back to like 2018?
All the way back.
Okay, awesome, sweet.
So it's not going to be like, oh, you have to have a 2022 TV or something like that. So
that's fantastic. That's really cool.
I think that is going to be, and just to make it clear, the part about going lower, that was only applied to the higher end meters, but the new algorithm will still be a major upgrade for people that have an i1 Display Pro or C6. I don't want those things to be confused. So you will get much more accuracy with your C6 near black on these, anything that uses a 1D LUT, essentially. So that could be some professional monitors as well, but we spent a lot of time doing testing, and I spent a lot of time in a black room over the holidays and stuff. I do kind of want to, apologize to why it's been so long since beta 1. Christmas, COVID, we had somebody usher in a new member of their family, so we had all these overlapping things that kind of contributed to making it take longer than expected to deliver the next beta and the GM. But thank you to everybody for being patient. I think it'll be worth the wait once you guys get it in your hands.
Cool. That's good. A couple questions that just came in. Cecil asks, will SPD readings come to the home software? I've seen a few people on AVS wanting that.
That's a good point. Let me make a note of that.
Okay, cool, good. Another question, this is actually a really good question. I was wondering myself from Bernard. What's the status on Lumigen or MadVR capabilities?
Stay tuned for the 2022 release.
Cool, yeah, that's awesome. Vladislav, hey, a regular here. Any information about TCL Calman Ready?
That is coming soon as well.
Stay tuned, stay tuned.
Yep.
Okay, great. Sammy, awesome, Sammy, nice to hear from you. Will the Aurora Color engine also be available for Lumigen?
Yes.
Stay tuned.
That is why it's not like flippy to switch. So
Yeah, good. And then Ben, this is so funny, Tyler, because you and I were talking about this before we started, but Ben asks, can you set parameters for the AutoCal, such as I don't want the y-axis to be above 329, which is hilarious because you and I were just talking about that like 10 minutes ago.
well, I'll definitely bring it up to our R&D team, but usually just focusing on an X, like don't do Y. I don't think there's color science to back that up. But I will bring that to our R&D team. But I mean, I would just focus on lowering your delta IATP as low as possible, because we know that an XY coordinate, like Euclidean distance in XY, is not perceptually uniform. So different colors or different parts of the luminance range, different amounts of deviation from the little y value is actually going to be perceptually different. So I will bring that to our R&D team, but as far as my understanding is, obsessing on the white core or the y coordinate, the little y coordinate, might not be like a panacea that people would expect it to be. You really want to focus on the delta ITP, because that is actually, it's using the ITP color space, which is way more perceptually uniform than an XYY color space. It's not, that's not so.
Yeah, we
If
were,
we,
oh,
yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, if you plot like the McAdams ellipses or ellipses in XYY, the idea would be that in XYY they would be an ellipse, but they might not be an ellipse in a perceptually uniform color space. In a perfect color space, they would be a circle. So I will definitely bring that to our R&D team and our color scientists.
Okay,
Plural.
cool.
So.
You and I were kind of playing with the TV a little bit earlier this afternoon, and just for giggles, we had set the delta error. I think we hit 0.1, and it was, I mean, it was very, very low, and a lot of points were able to hit that low on that particular TV.
Yeah,
So
and yeah, you can just set it to 0 and it will go until it can't get any better. And
mhm.
it'll just take more time and it'll just keep going until it's tried every, on something that has a multi-point grayscale like Panasonic or Sony or Samsung. It will try all the combinations of values around the target. It won't just stop at a certain threshold. Like if you set
Yeah,
it to 0, it will take longer, but it will just keep grinding. So
yeah.
that, if you have extra time, then just set it to 0.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, because I usually, if I'm dealing with somebody who needs it or wants it to be super critical, I'll set it to like 0.5, but I've never tried doing 0, so I definitely will give that a shot next time I'm working on TV. Tom asks, do you plan on adding a QD OLED EDR for the new Sony TVs? If so, when?
When I have access to one, I would do that. Yes. So
Okay,
we're planning to, when we have access to a panel like that, we will create an EDR for it.
awesome, very good, very good. Let's see what else we got going on here.
I would expect the EDR to be very similar to just a quantum dot
Think so?
TV now.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not going to be the same, but if you have access to one tomorrow and you need an EDR, I would pick the quantum dot TV one.
All right, cool. Matt says the new 1D LUT engine is working Is the new 1D LUT engine working better for HDR implementation? Any news about new methods for 3D LUT slash 3x3 matrix for HDR calibration?
Yeah, so it's working great for SDR and HDR. I would say the near black stuff is almost more important for HDR because all these panels are still gamma. We're calibrating them in gamma, for example, on LG, and then we turn the PQ stuff back on. And when you go from PQ to gamma, sometimes, especially near black, things can get amplified. So small errors can be larger errors, or a small crushing can be like complete crushing.
Right.
So I think it's almost more important for HDR. We are always investigating more precise ways to do HDR gamut, especially on emissive technologies where heat can be a factor in the accuracy. So we have some stuff working with R&D on that front, but we don't have an announcement at this time or anything like that.
Okay, cool. Chris asks, "Hey Chris, I haven't heard from you in a while. Nice to see you here. I'm gonna butcher this. I'm just gonna tell you now. Will the Qualif QALIF Spectro be supported in R4? In R3, it was already selectable as for IP in the dropdown, but there was no option for entering the IP address."
We're still working on that.
Very good, very good. I hope that answers your question, Chris. Sammy threw in another question here. With the increased accuracy of the higher, will the increased accuracy of the higher end meters be available? Will we have control over how low we want to go, or is it a static range? Is that maybe, Sammy, that was what we were talking about before with the delta, but I could be wrong. Do you have any
Well,
thoughts on that?
I think it's like how currently there's no way for an end user to decide which points in the 1D they want to do. That has been a feature request that we're looking into, but currently you only have a choice of what we put in there. But we're going to have some more choices in there. But I will definitely talk with product management about requesting the ability to have a user define their own adjustment points if they're doing a 1D LUT.
I've never seen that meter before. Where's that one come from? Do you know?
The Qualif?
Yeah.
I think it's Belgium or.
Oh, okay.
It's
Somewhere
actually
over there.
pretty cool. It's like has a big touch screen on the back and stuff. I know Barco and Barco installers use it a lot. So it
Very
is a
nice.
priority. It's just not ready yet.
Bernard has another question, and this is hilarious because this is now the second question that you and I were talking about before we went live. Nice job on the support for LG projectors. What about JVC? You and I just talked about this. That's so funny.
We're always open to working with other manufacturers, but that's about all I can say.
Okay, cool. Fabio asks, any improvement for 3D LUT capabilities for the LG as well? 1D LUT sounds great, but it's only half of the metal.
So we do have some more features that are going to be coming out, upgrades, mostly process upgrades, coming in 2022. So there's nothing immediately in 2021.
Okay, cool. And Fabio, and anybody who's asking questions, and thank you guys, by the way, these are awesome questions. Tons of them are rolling in, but if you want any follow-up, just go ahead and type that in the question box and we'll hit it a little bit harder. Ken says, what about the sync of the CR100? Has that been resolved? And he says after profiling.
I believe that will not be fixed until 2022. Okay. Oh, I just hit the mic. Essentially, it's related to some other issues we found, and there needs to be a lot more refactoring. Than it wasn't a simple bug. So it was related to some other things that are also going to be fixed at the same time.
Okay, good. Tom asks, would it be possible to add high-res support for Calman charts? At the present, when you try to save an embedded chart, all you get is low res. It's very important for reviews. I've never seen that before.
I mean, it's only it's only as high resolution as being rendered on the screen, right? So if you're on a high resolution display, then it will be saved in a higher resolution. But if you're not, but I can share that with product management, a feature request of if you try to save a chart, it be saved in a higher resolution than what is displayed on screen.
Okay, cool. Steve asks, a couple of questions ago, you were talking about a setting between 0 and 0.5. I'm assuming he's meaning the delta threshold. What's the AutoCal accuracy when doing a 1D? I think the default is 0.5, and I usually set it to 0.25. Am I thinking about the same setting as you were mentioning? Yeah, I
Yes,
believe that's the
yes.
same thing. Yeah, okay.
I just want to say you can set it to 0.
Right, yeah, and that's cool. I've never actually tried that before because I didn't think of even setting it to 0. I think for just for experimentation and playing around one day, the lowest I think I've ever set it was 0.25, like what Steve's saying here. So that's awesome. I'm definitely gonna give that a shot next time I work on one. I'll set it to 0. Guys, keep those questions rolling in. We've had lots of great ones so far. We're kind of caught up with all the questions right now. So Tyler, if you wanted to maybe talk about anything else and let these folks put some more questions in. We're right at about 30 minutes right now. So guys, like I said, keep the questions rolling in. Tyler, is there anything else you wanted to kind of mention or talk about?
One thing is I would like to let people know is if you have any feature requests or suggestions, please go to our website and use the form that is submit feedback, because I get every single one of those emails, the whole product management team, we review them together. So please, if you have requests, even if it's the most, you think you're the only person in the world that wants this, please let us
Yeah.
let us know about it, because a lot of our new features, that's how they start, is somebody asking, why can't I do this?
Yeah. And
Or I would like to be able to do this.
I love that you guys are so open to that, because at Murideo, I mean, a lot of the features that you see in some of the generators and analyzers come from feedback from customers. And I know we take that stuff very seriously, and it's awesome to hear that you guys do too. That's very cool.
Yeah, because I mean, since we look at it every single day, you can get into this thing where you just kind of assume that this behavior is right, and it really helps other people, or it really helps us if other people kind of let us know. It could be, I don't like the usability of this. It takes too much time. This is ugly. I don't know. It could be anything, but your feedback is extremely well taken to us.
Good. Steve popped in with another question. Any discussion about virtual forge type generator for HDR?
So currently, the Windows version, the idea is you would use something like AJA's utility to turn on HDR for the device. So we don't have anything imminent, but I will definitely bring that up with product management.
And on that note, could we maybe touch on that just a moment? I personally never used Virtual Forge, so I'm not even completely clear on what that is and when it would be used.
So in Hollywood, everybody uses SDI connections. If they use HDMI, it's just because the display doesn't have it, and they convert from SDI to HDMI right at the back of the display, like on an LG or other OLED television. So everybody uses SDI. It's a very small amount of actual hardware pattern generators that support an SDI output. So, but what people do have is AJA and Blackmagic make output cards for PCs or Macs. It could be a PCI Express card, or it could be a Thunderbolt device. And what these devices do is they bypass all of the Mac OS or Windows color management. They are essentially a clean pipe from something like Premiere Pro or Resolve or Final Cut Pro directly out to a video feed. So they bypass all of the whatever color management Windows or Mac OS does. So it's a clean feed directly out, nothing messing with it. So we can take one of those devices, since they have SDKs for those, and we can actually, instead of driving it with Premiere Pro or Resolve, we can drive it with an app that is a pattern generator. And all it has is a frame buffer that we can draw a pattern on. And then those cards usually have SDI outputs. So most people already have those, or they're, they make ones that are, could be under $200. Some are even under $100 at this point, I think.
Wow.
But we can essentially, you put those in your PC or Mac, Thunderbolt or PCI Express, and we take over its output. So, obviously you have to like close, resolve, or whatever. And when our Virtual Forge launches, it takes over the output of that and turns it into a pattern generator.
Very cool. That's awesome.
So it's pretty useful. A lot of people will put it like in a rack, and they will have one of these as a dedicated pattern generator in like an equipment rack, because a lot of the facilities in Hollywood, they use machine rooms. It's like, looks like a data center with all of these machines in it. And then they use SDI distribution and switchers and stuff where they can send the feed of one computer to any room that they want. And then those rooms have switchable KVMs that are like over fiber back to the room. So if I'm a colorist and there's 3 color rooms, I can say, okay, take my Resolve box and feed the KVM to this room and feed the SDI to the reference monitor in this room. So that's a common practice. So a lot of times they will put Virtual Forge in a rack in one of these rooms, and then Virtual Forge and Calman talk over IP. So Calman doesn't need to be in the same room as this. As long as it's on the same network, it can say, hey, put up this color on the screen. And if you route the SDI output to the room you're in, then you have a pattern generator that covers a whole facility, but it's just a box sitting in a rack.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I that's why I've never used it before, because I don't do any studio work, at least not now. This is actually a really good question from Cecil, and I think I know the answer already, because I've run into this myself. He says, I've gotten a few emails or comments from people who bought i1 Pro 3 to profile, but they have Calman Home and can't get it to work. I try with mine as well, and I get the same thing. Is there not support for certain versions of the i1 Pros in home? So I've actually run into this question myself, where the i1 Pro 3 won't connect to Calman, and I did a little bit of research and searching, and I found a specific i1 Pro 3 driver on X-Rite's website. So I posted that on the Murideo forums, and I also posted it. If you look at avprostore.com and pick the i1 Pro 3, in the notes, I put a link for that driver in there as well.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that might just be a driver thing.
Yeah, because the i1 Pro 2 and 1 driver was the same or similar.
Yeah.
And the i1 Pro 3 has a unique driver. And if you don't install that, then Calman can't talk to it.
Right.
So that's usually the problem, and it's not immediately obvious.
Yeah. Any plans maybe on adding that to that driver pack that everyone downloads when they get Calman for the first time?
Yes, I will bring that up.
Okay, cool. But otherwise, guys, if you are running into an i1 Pro 3 that won't connect to Calman right away, again, avprostore.com. If you look at the i1 Pro 3 description, it's in there. And I also made a post about it on the Murideo forums. So good.
Also, if you have the X-Rite software installed, they also install a service that runs at all times. If that is running, Calman cannot talk to it, as far as I know.
So you'd have to kill that before.
So unless you buy like the OEM one, that doesn't work with that software. But a lot of people will just buy the retail version, and it comes with that software, and then they install that so they can calibrate their computer monitor and stuff. And all of a sudden, they have this service running in the background, and that is constantly looking for it. And when you plug it in, it takes it over immediately before Calman can talk to it.
Got it. Got it. Ben brings up a good question. I've run into this myself, and it could just be a setting with the start delay. But in a lot of cases, when I go to do like a read series for like a grayscale, for example, the meter will read the meter will read black because the patch hasn't come up on the screen yet. But like if I click on 100 along the bottom for the patches you can pick manually, if I click 100 first, get a pattern on the screen, then I hit read series, everything is fine. But if there's no pattern on the screen, I hit read series, the timing's off. Is that a setting or is that a bug?
I think it's more of when we talk to the pattern generator, the first time we send a pattern, we have to set some other parameters like size and everything. And I think if that's the first patch we've sent, you just connected and hit read series, I think there's the delay on the first patch. So like you said, I usually just click on one of the patches
Yeah,
first,
I've been doing it
and
forever. Yeah.
then you don't have to worry about that. But I will look into that and see if there's a way we can, you know,
Yeah.
we try not to on Connect like put up a patch. We usually put up the the grayscale
Yeah. It's
bars.
the 16 step. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Also, for example, on the Murideo Video Forge Pro and stuff like that, the grayscale bars are a different pattern than the patches. So it has to
Right.
switch to the patches and then
Right.
send. So you want it to be on the patches pattern first before you start a read series.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed too, and this might be a good tip for you guys, I run into that kind of that same situation when I'm making a profile. So before I make the profile, I'll go into like the grayscale page, put a patch on the screen. Then when I do the profile, you know, this whole situation we're talking about works like it's supposed to. So maybe if you guys are running into that, that's how I've gotten around it. No big deal. Just put a pattern on the screen, then make the profile, and you have no issues from there. Tom asks, do you plan on any more extensive volumetric 3D graph capabilities?
That is something we're definitely looking into.
Cool.
So we really want to, you know, have some more interactive ways to look at data. So that
Stay tuned.
we hear you loud and clear on that one.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Sammy asks, any plan? Oh, I'm not even sure what this is. You can probably shed some light for me. Any plans for support on the CR Wi-Fi box? I think that's talking about the meter, right? The CR meters.
I haven't seen one of those personally, but I'm sure that we will do that.
Okay. Cool. Sammy, if you have any follow-ups to
I
that.
haven't even seen one yet.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Chris asks, how's the experience over the past months on ARM, M1, MBPs, and parallels? It wasn't recommended in the past, but is currently the only option when you're running Calman on them.
So what I've heard, and this it's not officially supported, but I've heard if you have a new M1 Mac, you have whatever VM software you have, and then you have the ARM version of Windows, it works. That's I haven't tested myself, but I've got feedback from people that have set that up and they have no problem running it. But it's not officially supported yet because we haven't done extensive testing on it. We don't know if all hardware works or there's so we're not officially blessing it yet, but I've heard that it works.
Okay, cool, very good.
So if you want to get like a Parallels or VMware trial or something and try it, then and you have to make sure you get like the developer ARM version of Windows, not the Intel version of Windows.
So, Chris, what might be a fun little experiment for you is to try it and then give the Calman team some feedback and let them know what you're seeing. You could probably help them out quite a bit with that since that's what you're doing. Ladislav has another question. Any news about multi-point volumetric matching, like having a calibration program for probe matching? I'm not sure what this last sentence means, but maybe there's a little more precision compared to the 4-color matrix method. Do you have any thoughts on that? I'm not quite
Well,
understanding the question, but maybe you got what he's saying.
so other software has came out with that when we released the Bodner method with LG for WRGB OLEDs, and
Hmm.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen feedback from anybody that it's better. Um, so I don't know the answer to that, but our current recommendation is on non-additive displays like a WRGB OLED panel, then you should use the Bodner method. It was actually developed with LG, or
Hmm.
they developed it and we worked with them to put it in Calman. So
Good, good.
that's their official recommendation.
Guys, thank you for the questions. These are awesome. Keep them rolling in. We got about maybe 5-10 minutes left. If you do have any more questions, while we're maybe waiting for some questions to roll in, I've seen something recently where, and this might just be a good tip for people working on a Sony for the AutoCal. I ran into this kind of recently. I was running into all kinds of problems because I was doing something wrong. After connecting to the Sony TV with the Calman app, I was switching the inputs after that and running into a bunch of weird little problems. And what we kind of found out was, and what seems to maybe resolve it as far as the testing we've done so far, is making sure to switch the input before you connect to the TV. So if you guys are running into any little bugs like that, give that a shot. Maybe I'm the only goofball who who missed
Yeah,
that and is doing it wrong, but
you didn't watch my video. No, I'm kidding.
yeah.
No, so the Sony like app, the Calman for Bravi app, when you launch it, in the upper left-hand corner, there
Yes.
is a thing that shows you which HDMI input is
Hmm.
currently selected.
Yeah.
And if your generator is connected to like HDMI 3, you need to change that in after you launch the Calman for Bravi app. You don't need the remote. You just need to, I mean, sorry, you don't need to go into like the input menu in the TV. You just, in the upper left-hand corner of the
Yeah.
app, you navigate with the remote and then select which input your generator is connected to.
Yeah.
Then connect with Calman. I think that was the problem that we
Yeah.
determined.
And I'm probably the only person to run into that because I probably didn't read the instructions thoroughly. So thank you for the assist on that. Guys, I'm not seeing any more questions rolling in. Oh, there's one from John Reformato. John, how you doing? I hope you're enjoying Florida. The winter has been pretty nice so far. The last few days have been kind of crappy, but thank you for your question. He says, do you ever think that we'll see 3D LUT creation on a Sony maybe in the future?
That would be a question for them.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Just a question I've been kind of wondering myself. I haven't run into a Samsung out in the wild, at least for quite a while. It seems like. Have you guys gotten any feedback on how the Samsung AutoCal has been maybe progressing and maybe getting better over the years, or has it been working well for the last few years? Just haven't experimented with it too much lately.
We are working with them constantly, so we're always trying to improve it, but it's been pretty stable over time.
Good.
Um,
Good.
the challenge is they have a lot of different models and different sizes, and
Right.
having
Sure.
saying one workflow to do everything kind of um, limits a little bit of flexibility. So
Yeah.
there's always a give and take about making it easy
Sure.
versus making it too complicated
Yeah.
for most people to be able to do.
It's like I said, it's been at least 2 years or so since I've tried to work on one of those with the AutoCal feature. And one question I get quite a bit on that, there's a spot in that workflow where you can pick whether you want to calibrate like 25% color saturation, 75%, and 100%, or I think you might be able to do all three. Am I remembering that right, or am I
Yeah,
off
I
base
think
there?
that is not. I don't believe that is still in there,
Okay,
but I
cool.
would have to check.
Matthew has a great suggestion for John about the 3D LUTs in the Sony. Matt just says get an external 3D box, a 3D LUT box. So yeah, that would definitely solve that problem. Ben has another question. Have either of you experimented with different spectros with the laser projectors? For example, using an i1 Pro on the LG 810, or does that require a SPD? Does that SPD require the use of a 5 nanometer or 2 nanometer spectro? I can touch on this, and Tyler, you could probably add to it. A couple of years ago, I just started getting a lot of requests for the laser-based, the laser phosphor Sonys, and just talking to guys like Chris Deering and some of the others out there. There was this huge conversation going on about how a lot of meters, spectral meters, don't have really narrow enough bandwidth to really read the lasers properly. And I'm hearing numbers like, you need at least something that's 4 nanometers. So when I bought my Jetty like two years ago or so, because I was getting all these requests for Sonys, I went ahead and kind of bit the bullet and upgraded mine from the factory to 2 nanometers. And I've had, nothing but good luck and good readings so far with a 2 nanometer device. But if you look at like an i1 Pro 2, i1 Pro 3, it's 10 nanometers. So you almost can't quite trust the reading that you're getting. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Tyler, but that's been my experience so far.
Yeah, and I think most people have always considered, you need for really high end use, you need 5 minimum.
Yeah.
I know that like Flanders Scientific has found that on their PFS phosphor HDR reference monitor, if you measure with a 5 nanometer spectro, the color gamut coverage is only 99%. But if you measure
Hmm.
with a 2 nanometer, and it comes out to 100%.
Okay, so there are some very measurable differences, it sounds like, if you use a more precise, more narrow bandwidth. Cool. Lots of good questions coming in, guys. We got probably about 5 minutes left. Keep them coming in. Um, regarding the QD OLEDs, the EDRs must be different since blue is passed through, and there are only filters for red and green. Chris, I don't know if that was a comment or maybe a question, but he's right, right? Like there probably will have to be different
Well,
EDRs
I
based on
mean,
how the panel's built,
the
right?
the the blue LED, from what I've seen, the blue LEDs that were used in all the QLED TVs, it has a pretty similar spectral power distribution as the blue OLED. It's
Hmm.
similar. Like I said, it's not going to be the exact same, but I was saying that that would probably be the closest if you don't have an EDR or a profile yet. One thing I'd like to talk about is, if people haven't seen it, is I would recommend checking out the live stream, recorded live stream that you and I did along with Matt Smith and Sammy
Oh
and
yeah, that one was
Cecil
fun.
on
Right.
YouTube on Cecil's channel, Keep It Classy
Hmm.
Tech. We had a pretty good discussion, I thought, on metamerism and perceptual matching and
Hmm.
categorical observers and how different groups of people can see color differently,
Hmm.
and how different display technologies can look different even when measured the same. So I would highly recommend people check that out, because I think
Cool.
that's one of the biggest topics going around these days, is alternative white points, color
Right.
matching functions. Should we be using D65? Why don't these panels match?
Yeah.
Things like
Yeah.
that.
We see that at the shootout all the time. All the time. Paul has a question. How far away should a meter, like the X-Rite i1 Display Pro, be from the screen? I understand that no shadows should be on the screen, but there is some conflicting information. Thank you.
So from like a
So
projector.
yeah, that's what it sounds like he's asking about. And I'll just tell you from my own experience, having a laser pointer built into to your colorimeter or your spectral is super, super helpful, because you can literally aim it exactly where you want it on the screen, and you can angle it in such a degree that you know you're not hitting the shadow. I always joke about this in class. The poor man's solution is to grab one of those like pen laser pointers and just kind of hold it up against the meter and point it at the same angle at the screen. That way you're not hitting the shadow. But I have a pretty good suggestion that seems to work really, really well in this situation. So my analogy is this: if you've ever used a microphone before, like in a professional environment, if you don't get the microphone quite at the right angle, your voice will get a little bit quieter. So it might go something like hello, 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 hello. So if you think about that in the same way as a light meter, if you run the meter continuously with like a white patch up on the screen, and you take your tripod and crank the angle differently, and you're running the meter continuously with Calman. So as you point the meter up, you might get like a lower reading. You point the meter, at a different angle, you get a really bright reading, and you point it down, and now the reading's dark again. So for me, it's kind of all about finding that sweet spot where you get the brightest reading. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what I've been doing with meters that don't have laser pointers. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, but that's what I've kind of suggested to people.
What I usually say is like 2 meters back from the screen, and then do that, you know,
Yeah,
move around until you get the highest measurement. You just don't want
good.
it too close, because the screen's big and you want to be averaging more pixels than just a
Right.
tiny amount. Like, you don't want 100-foot LED wall and then shove a meter on it and it's measuring like 5 LEDs.
It's measuring like that
Yeah.
much. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Good call. Good call. And also too, on that note, guys, if you're going to have the meter, like Tyler suggesting, like 2 meters off the screen, room lighting. I mean, I've done this experiment plenty of times where as soon as you flip on the light, you get different readings. So when you're doing that kind of stuff, it is unbelievably essential to make sure that room is as absolutely dark as possible. And I've even seen, like, we have red exit lights here in this lab, and covering up the red exit light versus leaving it uncovered, you do see some slightly different readings as well. So if you're going to do that, make sure the room is as dark as you can possibly make it. Let's see what else. Looks like there's a couple more questions. Ahmed asks, will we ever see an update for Client 3 on newer Mac OS like Big Sur or Mojave, etc.?
That is something that we're very aware of, and Yeah, I can't say anything
Stay,
more, but
stay tuned.
we know.
That's funny. Eric asks, what's the cheapest 5 nanometer spectrometer? I don't know off the top of my head. Something you might want to check out is at avprostore.com. We have a bunch of different spectral and tri-stimulus meters that are on that website with the specs, including the optical bandwidth. That might be a good place to check. Another thing that would be cool, I wrote a huge article, it's on the Murideo forums, that outlines each meter that we carry and the benefits and the advantages and disadvantages and speeds and optical bandwidths and all these types of things. So what you might want to do is go to the Murideo forums and search. I think I titled it Murideo Guide to Light Meters. That might be something you want to check out to get some of that more detailed information, at least on the meters that we cover, that we carry on avprostore.com. That would be a good place to check. And then Cecil asks, and this is going to be probably the last question, guys. So if
Yep.
you have like a couple more, we got to get them done right away. Cecil says, I saw a tweet announcement from Portrait Displays and MediaTek. Can you touch on that and what it entails?
We're working closely with them on SoCs and calibration related stuff. So
Stay tuned.
yep. And
Cool. And then
they make a lot of TVs, SoCs, different
for sure.
manufacturers put their own branding on it, but they're behind a lot of TVs.
For sure. Okay, and Tom's question is going to be the last one. If you guys have any questions beyond this, feel free to email me, jason@murideo.com. I'm happy to either answer those as best as I can, or if I don't know the answer, happy to get Tyler involved on any questions you might have beyond Tom's question. And that is, I'm going to butcher this one as well because I've never heard of it. Do you plan on supporting Avantes, AVANTES spectros?
Email us or go to the submit feedback and send us a link, or if
Okay.
they can do an introduction with us.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be
I
awesome.
just personally haven't heard of that. So,
Yeah,
but
he says they're Dutch, so that's cool. I've never heard of it before. I'd like to at least see it, play with it. It sounds, it's geeky stuff, the stuff we like. So guys, thank you so much for attending. That's going to do it for today. The session has been recorded. I'll get it up on YouTube today, maybe tomorrow at the latest. Feel free, pass it around to your friends and colleagues who may have missed it. Thank you so much, Tyler, for your time.
thanks. I'll
Cool.
hopefully talk to you soon on one of these.
Yeah, exactly. See you guys next time.